Günther Bentele, probably and hopefully attending this online session, Emeritus Professor of Communications from Germany, and also Anne Gregory in UK. And after that discussion, I understood that it would be great to organize an event for both academics and practitioners, and later became also the possibility to include media and communications with people together. But after that, major changes have been.
Was there a moment when you thought, like, no, this is not going to happen?
I'm not kind of a person. On the contrary, I very seldom give up. It really needs a decision, like it's not gonna work. So when the pandemic started, I immediately told to ProCom fantastic team that we are going to make this. We postponed some other events, but not this one. So we started to modify everything to the hybrid mode.
Yeah.
But afterwards, just like a few weeks ago, I thought that why did I invent the whole thing? Because there has been so much technology challenge and also modifications in the program that it has been hard work, at least double work than normal.
With people like you, we're going to beat the pandemic.
Well,
never give
probably,
up.
Yeah, it's the Finnish grit, I suppose.
I'd like to go back to the when you mentioned about journalists and academics. ProCom is an organization of communications professionals. Why, for this seminar, you decided to include journalists and academics?
It's a very good question, probably because I'm a kind of a cross-disciplinary person myself. I'm a researcher, I paint, I do this and that. So it's kind of logical for me to think that we shouldn't be in the silos of talking such an important topic like ethics. And after the discussion with Anne Gregory and Günther Bentele, I understood that at least academics, but then the journalists, I don't know where they came, probably because we actually sail in the same boats with the problems of hybrid media landscape.
Okay, I've understood that journalists have quite enjoyed today.
But that's good news.
They're really getting into this. You mentioned hybrid. A lot of people in communications, but in other businesses too, are struggling with understanding how to work in the new hybrid environment. Are there any takeaways from the last half a year that you could share with us that would maybe help other people that are planning or trying to decide whether to do a hybrid event? Would you do it all over again?
Well, we have to do it because I think that this is the new normal afterwards. But it was a big one to start with because it's international. So when you're I've been on the field for more than 30 years, organizing different kind of events. I'm a defensive pessimist, so I always make plan Bs.
Yeah.
But with the hybrid conference, international conference, you really have to think all the time, where can it be possibly going wrong? Okay. And still there are surprises. Like people are not very used yet for technology. We have had rehearsals for speakers. We have, even after the rehearsals, we have found out that people don't find cameras in their laptops, for example, or time differences, surprises.
Okay, so always have plan B, maybe plan C.
Yes, many plan Bs.
Okay, a lot of plan Bs. That's your Elina's rule. Have you learned anything new about audience behavior during the hybrid event?
Well, that's also a very good question, because there used to be in the past a professor called Osmo Avio in Finland, and he said that communications fails except by chance. So many times I've thought about it like with this, that communications is so key that if we don't really make it clear and then repeat and repeat, because it's hybrid and it's with technology. So people are like, smart people find like, where's my link and what does this mean? So communications is everything when making the hybrid conference. It has been a surprise. Normally you discuss and you deliver a message, it's there. But with this hybrid, it's different.
Okay. What do you think are maybe the short-term benefits of having this conference and then the long-term benefits? How does this work for you?
Short term, in a sense, bad times with pandemic. Lucky that we talk about ethics. It's really timely because there are new problematic things in the communications field. And in long term, I have had a discussion or dream with Günther and Anne in the beginning that this could be a kind of an event that could be every second year in different city, like Lisbon Ethics 2022 or London Ethics, so on. So I think the importance is already there and it's growing. The problems in the communications field, I think there's a lot we can do for basis for the other cities or countries to go ahead with this topic. Okay,
but the seminar we're attending right now is going to go on tomorrow. What are you looking forward to next? When you wake up tomorrow morning, what's the first thing in your mind? What do you want to see and hear?
I want technology to go well, first of all, because I know that the experts can speak, just the connections are fine. And I would love to see active audience. We have had wonderful discussions after the speeches with the moderator, professional moderator, and the audience, online and in person. So I would like to see that. Plus, I'm waiting for some exceptionally smart ladies giving extraordinary speeches on something out of the media box or communications box. For example, philosopher Mairit Ollila is speaking in the morning about the artificial intelligence ethics for global businesses. And in the end of the day, we will have an author that I admire, Sofi Oksanen, giving us a speech about his perception of the how you can have freedom of expression in Europe. Smart
ladies, but also very brave and outspoken. So that is something to look forward to. Last question. There's a rumor going around that there is something called Helsinki Ethics Manifesto in the works.
That's correct.
So it's a correct rumor.
It's a
what is it?
Rumor. Well, it's something a little bit old-fashioned way of putting together the main themes that we have had during the 2 days conference. And there is a group of people, academics, who compile a few pages of key findings, and that can be also delivered to anybody interested in ethics, researcher or practitioner or media people. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Elina. This is a cocktail event, so I have to let you go and mingle, and then I will hope we will see the next guest here soon.
Yes. Ching, ching.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
As our next discussion partner, I will have here Kaisa Lipponen. Welcome, Kaisa.
Hello.
So you have a glass with you?
Yes.
Are you enjoying yourself?
Yes. Yes, very much. Long day behind us, but very interesting.
Cool. You're the chair of the ProCom board and a member of Council of Ethics in Finland. And of course, you're the senior vice president for communications and sustainability at Paulig Group. How would you describe this day as a whole? What did you see? What did you hear? What did you experience? What do you take with you from today?
I think one of the main goals of the event was, of course, to increase the awareness of the communication ethics issues. And I think that the first day really met the expectations really well. And also I think that it put our work into wider context. Why is it important that we actually follow the code of ethics, and why is it important that we build trust through communications every day? Why is it important that we base our content and messaging on facts and data? Why is it important that we are transparent and open, and so on? So I think that it kind of reminded us that we cannot take it for granted, and we need to work on those topics and contribute to the more responsible and more ethical communications every day. So I think it was a really kind of very good reminder of this.
It's going to give you energy and confidence that you're working on the right things.
Yeah, it kind of put your daily work into bigger context, why this work is so important. And then when you heard all those stories about journalists being threatened and killed, and freedom of speech and press being in danger and all that, it kind of gives you the feeling that we want to be on the right side and we want to work for the better future.
So you're kind of, in communications, I guess, when you do it right, you work with the journalists, not like against the journalists.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. And there was also a discussion today that we have to draw a line between journalism and communications, and I agree to some extent, but there are also a lot of common topics for these two industries. So basically, for example, building the trust is at the core of both of them. So I think that we have also a lot in common.
Was there anything that made you look at what you do and the whole topic in a different way? That was a new angle, new way of looking at things that you heard today?
Yeah, I was thinking, I especially liked the first keynote speaker, Alan Rustbridge, who spoke about how the role of media has changed, that they are no longer just informing, but also influencing and even entertaining. Yeah. And he kind
making
of
jokes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he kind of introduced that as a problem, of course. Then it's a question of trust, if you can trust anymore, if it's only about jokes and so on. But I was also thinking about that the same applies to communications as well, that our role has changed a lot during the last decade. So we are no longer just informing, but we are most often influencing, trying to influence and also to entertain often. And maybe in communications, that's not, it doesn't have to be a big issue. I think we can do all that. But as long as we base our content on facts, and that's true what we say, or as true as possible, and kind of that we try to follow the ethics and not just tell our own opinions. So I think that was interesting, like the analogy between journalism and communications.
Was there anything you heard today that you could maybe implement into your job? Maybe remember when you were talking to journalists or writing something that the press will see. Is this going to affect your working life at all?
Definitely. I think one of the things that I actually hope not only myself and my team, but also other communications professionals, I think that we should really go back to see what the Communication Code of Ethics actually says about the ethics of communications, because we have that also in Finland and in other countries as well, as we heard today. And I think it's very well written and it's very clear. It sets the expectation level, what is expected from us. We should go back there, read it. We should make sure that we actually have in our own organization, that we have a similar code of ethics for our operations, and then also kind of make sure that we actually speak up if we feel that our organization is not always following that code. That was very important topic that the last speaker raised, that sometimes it might feel uncomfortable to, for example, tell to your boss that, well, I think that we cannot do this because we cannot say this because it's not 100% true, or it's not based on facts or anything, but we should.
But if you have a smart boss, he or she expects that from you.
Exactly, but we should not be silent, and we should not just do what is kind of what gets the attention, but we should stay true to our core values and code of ethics.
This is more of a general question, not so much about today, but how do you see the general space of, or maybe just in Finland, the communications ethics space developing? Do you think things are getting any better, or do you think things are getting worse?
I think many of us who participated in the event today were quite shocked how the situation is globally. And on the other hand, I think many of us in the Nordic countries are quite happy with our situation, but we don't have to go very far, and we face a different reality. So basically, I think that we cannot just stay in our own happy bubble, and but we need to prepare for this kind of phenomenon that we heard today, and stay alert, really. I think that we just heard from Kaius Niemi, who will be speaking here next. I think he was also giving also me a little bit hope, because he also shared this view that here in Finland, freedom of speech and freedom of press is in a really good shape. So we want to keep it on that track, of course.
You're a member of the Council of Ethics in Finland. Based on what you heard today, is there something you feel you should work even harder on? Like something that you may have overlooked or taking for granted, that when you go into your next meeting, you're going to really want to push an agenda?
Yeah, I think, of course, that we, like the leaders of the communications teams and the team leaders and the directors, we definitely have to make sure that our own teams are on board. Like I said, that all the communicators should go back to their laptops and Google Communication Code of Ethics, and they find what is at the core of our profession, and we need to protect that. Otherwise, we like we heard today, maybe in 20 years, journalists have no jobs, and we don't have either if we don't cherish the ethics of communication. So that's really, I think we need to continue to raise the awareness of the ethical issues in communications, definitely.
Thank you so much, Kaisa. I have to let you keep on mingling and
enjoying the
cocktails and the conference. Have a great day today and tomorrow, and I'll be seeing you.
Yeah, thanks,
Cheers.
Jaakko. Cheers.
And next, as my last conversation partner, I have the pleasure of having Kaius Niemi. He's the editor-in-chief of Helsingin Sanomat. Good evening, sir. Good to have you here.
Thank you very much, Jaakko. How are you?
Very good, very good. Interesting conversations here, and you're the last, so let's have a grand finale here.
Okay, cool.
Helsingin Sanomat Foundation has given quite important, substantial support to this event. After the first day, do you think it was money well spent?
I would say so. I'm of course a great fan of Alan Rusbridger, and to have people like him, attending this kind of a conference in Helsinki, which is actually like really focusing on ethical issues, regarding journalism, society at large, also communication sector and field. I think, it has been wonderful. I have loved it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, when I listened to Rusbridger, I was thinking of you, and I said, like, I have to ask Kaius about this, because he talked a lot about the disconnect between today's journalists and journalism and need for quality and good journalism, that they're not like really finding each other at the moment. And he didn't use this word, but kind of you get the feeling that he thought that the journalists were doing the wrong thing. How did you react to that when you were listening to him? Did you find that, like, is that something you're thinking about?
Well, I'm thinking about it like on a daily basis, because like Helsingin Sanomat, it's a very old traditional newspaper. It's 130 years old. At the same time, we are trying to make the newspaper important, viable in the future digital era, which is of course very challenging. And I think especially how to make the substance that we are providing important and meaningful for young people is the key element. And so I think there is how much are we disconnected is really the key questions. That how are we doing? Are we doing important things, societal wise? Alan talks about like, being a public servant, which is, I think it's a great idea, even though we are a private newspaper, but still, like, I think there's definitely a public interest here. So I think, if not thinking of this on daily basis, then I think, things are going not well. And of course, one might say that and Alan was also talking about like, how much you use analytics on a daily basis and what are the key numbers and KPIs that you're actually following. I think that's a very important question as well, because if you're only following the numbers and not thinking about the quality of the journalism and in-depth journalism enough and trusting that actually that is one of the biggest driving forces also for Helsingin Sanomat and good, good quality traditional newspapers, then you're probably losing the grip, because you're going to the to be more and more entertaining, and of course you get nice numbers, but you might not convert people into paying customers, which is in the end of the day really the biggest question: how to make people actually pay for good articles online, which was actually regarded maybe like 10 years ago completely impossible, but we can do it. I mean, it's possible, which is fantastic, but it really is a very
Alan
tough
spoke
job.
also about how it's difficult to find the next generation of journalists, young people who want to engage in journalism and find a career in journalism. What's the situation here in Finland? Are you finding good folks?
Well, I mean, this summer we have witnessed that at least Helsingin Sanomat is in a very good position, that we are actually getting really talented young energized people, and that's good. But I think if we would only think that yes, they will come and we will get all the most talented people, I think that would be a wrong attitude. I think
we can take anything for granted in today's world.
Exactly. I think you have to sort of really think that is this kind of a place where people like to work? Is journalism something which is a driving force? Because in the end of the day, I think, and this is going a little bit back and forth, like how important is the media and how much media does have power. And maybe 5 years ago, at least in Finland, people said like traditional media doesn't have any power at all. Now we can see a new type of discussion that does media have again too much power? And
Wrong kind of power.
I don't know. But this relates to also that if media is regarded not being important, I'm not talking about the power itself or power base, but rather like is it important and being regarded as interesting thing? Then we are most probably securing the fact that we are gaining new generation of young talented people who are actually interested in this very sort of like original journalism itself, which is pretty much the same kind of journalism that that has been there for decades, so it's even though it's getting digital.
You yourself are still a young man, but you've been around for decades. If you look back or sort of look at the time you've been working in journalism, when it comes to today's theme, ethics in journalism and communications, do you think things have gotten better, or do you think things have gotten worse?
Well, I think,
what have you seen?
I think both, because things are gone really worse, in many sense. You've got like you've got politicians that are using a methodology in order to sort of like bash the newspapers and the media at large and on the whole, kind of using it as a kind of a pretext for gaining more power, and trying to sort of like blame the media. We can see, I mean, this is the same what has happened in Turkey, in Hungary, in the States, whether or in Brazil or in the Philippines, you name it. So this is something which is going worse. On the other hand, when things are going more and more crazy, then the very essence of journalism is actually being underlined. Because if there are so many people who are not interested in facts anymore, then I think the majority of people still are. And so I mean, now it's more visible actually that there are threats towards like open democracy, open communication, journalism, free journalism, free speech. And so I think people are starting to understand that, hey, these journalists are doing also important job, that they are fighting for their rights and fighting for people's access to information. And so I mean, it goes both ways. And then in the end of the day, maybe after 5 years, 10 years, you can say that, like, you know, who's on the winning side. But I think at least in Finland, there is a tendency, and in the Scandinavia, you know, in Sweden, Norway, Denmark, that there is and also, you know, in Estonia as well, in the Baltic countries, that you know, the society cannot be in a healthy mode if there is no journalism, good quality journalism being done. And I think people do, you know, majority of people still do think about it.
And I
like
think
that.
we are internationally seeing that the society can't be in good shape if journalism is not in good shape, and if there is not like sort of respect and understanding towards what journalists are trying to achieve. I know one of your favorite themes and something that is very close to Helsinki Sanomat's heart is freedom of speech in general. How do you see that developing at the moment? What are the major threats? Let's talk about the dark side. What are the major threats to freedom of speech in the world at the moment?
Well, in the world, you know, you can see, of course, these authoritarian regimes that are actually benchmarking from each other, you know, very quickly, like, you know, new methods of completely and sinister, in a sinister way, just, you know, getting rid of journalists and you know, and open up, open democracy as if there has been any of that, you know, and institutions as well. And so I think really worrisome thing is Freedom House, for instance, estimated that only 1/5 of the world's population, 20% of the world's population, are having an access into free and safe internet. So it's and so you start to think that, like, actually, like, you know what is happening in China and in many other countries. And you know, it's something which we probably see happening more and more. If we see what President Erdogan is doing in Turkey, or what Prime Minister Orban is doing in Hungary, they are actually looking what President Putin is doing in Russia, and everybody are actually using same methodologies. There is only
sometimes they're using the same consultants.
Yeah, exactly.
That are helping them to do this.
I mean, there's a research, like internet research agency, a kind of a troll factory in St. Petersburg in Russia, which is about 400 kilometers from Helsinki. And those guys are actually helping the Filipino government, you know, to gain more and more social media power. And Maria Ressa, who is the editor-in-chief of Rappler, which is a Filipino English-based news agency or news site. She's talking about weaponization of the social media, which is actually like really happening hand to hand with the Russian authorities and the Filipino government officials. And so, I mean, you know, this is only one small example of what's going on. It's a very sinister game, very dark game.
Are we seeing any of that here in safe Finland? Is everything hunky-dory, or do you have to look out?
I would love to say everything is hunky-dory, but no. I mean, we are very, you know, vulnerable in the longer run, you know, for any of these tendencies. And of course, we can see that, you know, online harassment towards, for instance, journalism is pretty normal thing, daily basis, and there are many elements, you know, that are very similar and reciprocal, you know, compared to other countries. And so of course, like, you know, quantity wise, you know, things are still going probably a little bit more smoother than in many other places. An editor-in-chief can actually walk Helsinki city streets, not being afraid of being mugged or anything like that. And so I think there's still safe environment. But on the other hand, I think we can see that doing journalism independently it can be really hard, especially for instance, women journalists. You know, many of them are being constantly and very coherently like attacked, you know, by trolls and so forth. And this is one of these elements that are pretty new elements, actually. You know, that started like 10, 15 years ago, but has actually increased and being a real problem.
Okay. Lastly, a question regarding the organizers of this event. It's communications professionals. Right. Kind of in the old way of looking at things is that they're on the other side and you're on the other side, and then you're trying to get along. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But anyway, how do you, in this new, somewhat changed environment, look at the communications professionals, and do you have like, or based on what you heard today, do you have anything you'd like to say to the communications pros from your seat?
Well, I can see when the communications is being done, in a proper way, because good communications is always fact-based. It's not trying to whitewash things. I think the social media is actually hitting the communications professionals, as hard as the journalists. If you're making a mistake, you'll get the feedback within seconds nowadays.
Yeah.
The journalists, we're still like, we are one of those watchdogs. If a company, for instance, is using, sinister methodologies, then we are writing about it. We're doing journalism about it. So I mean, communications pros are, at least for the time being, under quite severe sort of like they are being monitored. And I think in a country like Finland or in the Nordic countries, I think there's still a kind of an ethos for fact-based elements, and it starts from the schools and goes to any professions, so I think the at least it's not very cool being a communication pro and try to lie, so I think I think it's I think in that sense I myself do appreciate people who are trying to do everything for instance for the journalists to get good chunk of information, being open and so forth. And I think there's always tension between journalists and the communication pros, but that's normal thing. It doesn't need to be hostile, but it's name of the game. But we still can be in the same room.
As long as you are working fact-based.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Kaius.
Thank you, Jaakko.
This was a joy.
Cheers.
Hope you have a great evening and great tomorrow. The seminar goes on.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here. Cheers.
Cheers. And cheers, everybody.